Hi everyone, I'm going to show you how to make some paper smash or paper clay. You've got shredded paper. If you have a paper shredder, you've got the perfect supply. You can also do newspaper, rip it the long way, and then small, short, about 2 by 2 inches. Pour boiling water or really hot tap water in. And then you're going to let these sit for 24 hours. So the hard part is not to try and smash it now. It's really not going to do anything. It's just to let it sit. So while you're letting that sit, get nice and soft, you can think about what you want to make. So I took an old orange juice carton. I took the cap, so I'm going to make it an animal out of this. This has got a waxy surface, so yesterday we tried glue and water, Elmer's and water, and it fell off. So I'm going to do an experiment today, and I added some Aleene's glue to the Elmer's glue, so it's now 3/4 glue and 1/4 water, and then I have just wheat flour, and we'll try some of that too and see how it works. The really good stuff is if you have art paste at your house. Do not go out and buy this if you're just trying to do this. Other things will work. There's also Mod Podge, and if you have a lot of glue, you can just put the glue on, kind of paint the glue on, and do it on the bottom and the top of the stuff. And you put some of your paste down, and then on top. Make sure when you're doing your paper mache goo, whatever it happens to be, that you get your paper smooth over the surface. And then you can think about, I've got some old cardboard here from around the house. Do I want to cut some wings out of this? How do I want some plumes for the head? So I'm going to think about that today while my paper is soaking, and I'm going to come up with some ideas and maybe tape them on. This is not something that I'm going to be able to wear, so it doesn't have to come off of this carton. Some options, if you wanted to wear your mask, this one could probably fit. The cover could probably fit. These are takeout containers. You can also, next time I will show you, you could cut an egg shape out of a 9 by 12 piece of cardboard, and then cut 2 notches in the top, 2 notches in the bottom. I'll show you here. So you have your piece of paper, all right? And you want to draw an egg shape. Okay, 1 notch or 2 notches at the top, 1 notch at the bottom. And then you overlap a little and staple, overlap a little and staple, overlap a little and staple, and you have a good mask size to start for a face mask that will fit you. So try that and watch for my next video. Now that your paper has been soaking for 24 hours, you have some choices on how to get the paper into clay. My favorite is to use a stick blender. Just blend it all up, and then when you're done, because it's stainless steel, you wash it off and any little ink residue comes right off of the metal. If you have a blender, this works great, but if it's a plastic blender, that might stick. The ink might stick, so I wouldn't recommend using a household plastic blender if you want to use it for food afterwards. This is my studio blender. So you want to take about a handful of paper, and then you fill the whole thing up, like 3/4 full, with paper, cover it, and blend it. The more paper you put in, the more you're challenging the motor of your blender, so be really careful with that. Then when you're done, you get this nice liquidy paper pulp. It's way too liquid to use, so one of your choices is to take a strainer and put a little bit of pulp in there. You can push it down, you can bang it a little bit, and that kind of gets it out. Or you can just squeeze it. Squeeze as much of the water out as you can. Gets a little harder as you go because there's more water than pulp left in it. But squeezing with your hands works good too if you don't have anything to use. You don't want to go down to totally unwatery clay because then it won't stick to itself as well. But this is a pretty good consistency. It's still kind of squishy wet, not soaking wet, and not. If I squeeze a little bit more out, it's when you unpack it, it's a little less sticking to itself. Then you have paper clay. Add a little bit of salt to it. This helps preserve it. It'll last about a week. You can also stick it in the refrigerator. And that gives you about a week to use it. It only lasts a couple days if you don't put the little bit of salt in. Now if you want a little bit smoother clay, this was, I'll show you, starts with the paper pulp. Add a little bit, if you did the glue in water, you probably have a little bit left over. You can pour some of that in, stir it up. But I have found with just going with the paper clay, the pure mushed paper and the salt works pretty good. Now that I've got that glue all mixed in there, I'll take a little bit of flour, a little bit at a time. Once it gets to the consistency that you like, then you're good to go. And then you're ready to start putting it on your creation that is all set up, adding the cardboard, adding little details that you want as a structure. I'll show you that in the next video, but your paper clay is ready to go. Hi everyone, I have some of my clay made. I've got just the paper pulp with some salt in it. This is the shredded paper. It's a little different color than the newsprint. This is my newsprint with some glue and flour and also salt. The salt is a preservative. So now we start to put on stuff. I've got my orange juice container, and I've added some eyes with the cover, and I put some cardboard under here to make a plume, and I added some cardboard from a cookie box for some wings. So on the wings I put the smooth clay, and then on the plume I made it with the bumpy clay. And I've done the plume in two sections. So when I did the wing, I also did the plume because it was on the same side and I could dry it laying flat. And then I turned it over and I did this the second day. And when I did it, it wet through so that the whole plume is now dry and the first part had already been dry. So something to think about when you're adding something to the other side, especially if it gets a little flimsy when it's wet, all that water from the clay is going to soak through your base. So something you want to think about. Now I've got this guy on a stand because I want to make a bumpy belly. So now that I've got the two kinds of clay, I can play around with rough and smooth and how big I want to make this stuff. So this clay, you can build it up. The thicker you make it, the longer it's going to take to dry, so keep that in mind. I'm going to make it really pretty flat here, but I want all the texture the same, so I'm adding this to the whole thing. Maybe I'll even put it up under his chin. And then the more I pat it down, the smoother it's getting. You can't really rub it. And there he's got a little bit of a pot belly. I could even throw in a little dangly thing on his chin. Maybe he's looking like a rooster or something. So we'll leave him like that. Then I also wanted to show you, I'm making kind of a cup vessel. I put this in last night. I put it upside down, but for a minute I just tapped the bottom so it was nice and flat. And now I'm going to add some of the smooth because I'm thinking I want to make an animal face on the top of this. I think that would be kind of cool. And this clay, because it's got the glue in it, you could get it a little thicker. I just wonder how long it's going to take to dry, but I'm going to show you a little secret at the end of the video for drying purposes. Keep your edges important. Keep the edges pretty thick because you don't want the whole thing to fall apart when you take it off of your base. This one's cool because you will be able to take it off the base as you saw. So I'm going to start this. You got to do it in stages. I'm just going to start and just add the mound of the face. So it's got a little snout there, sticking out pretty good. And then I will just get a container and lay this in the container to dry. A little way to help you dry stuff is to cut a hole in a box or a cross piece of the box, and then you set your hair dryer inside. You can do it either way, depending on where you want the dryer to point. I've left mine on for 5 or 6 hours. I do it in a room where I know I'm going to hear it before I go to bed, so it doesn't run all night. So that's something that will help it dry. Have fun.